Okay, so we're now at part 2 of the tutorial. What I'm going to show you over here is how we can customize this staircase a bit further so we can make it more interesting staircase. Okay, so I'm just going to work on the main one here first. So what I'm going to do is I just take my second staircase. Let me just rename this to staircase number 2, staircase 2, and this will be staircase 1. I'm going to hide number 2 first, and let's bring staircase 1 over here. So the very first thing I want to do is to recenter the axis, because you can see that after we have done our modeling, the pivot point is still hanging up over here. I just want to center it so that it's like somewhere at the bottom corner over here, so that we can do some scaling. And instead of manually moving the axis point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this command called the axis center. Just go down to the mesh, and then we'll go to where is it? Sorry, not the mesh, but the tools. Go down to axis and find the axis center. So this will pop up this window, which allows us to center the axis. Okay, and what we're going to do is use these sliders so that you can automatically center the axis to wherever we want on the object. Okay, and based off this axis, we want it to be at this corner over here. So looking at it, we need this axis to move to the back, so in the negative x direction, and then we need to move down also in the negative y direction. So if you look at these sliders, okay, they're currently set at 0%. What I want is to move the x to the negative at 100%, so that it goes all the way to the edge on the x-axis, and we also want to move it all the way down in the y-axis. So I'm going to set that to minus 100%. And then we can press execute. And there we go. This is the axis that has jumped to the bottom corner there. Okay, I'm going to do so for my second staircase also. So I'm just going to switch it on again. Let's move that off to the side and execute the command again. Click on it. And the axis for the second staircase also jumps to the edge over there. All right, so let's hide that again. Now we go back to our first staircase and we can turn off the axis center now. Okay, so this gives us options to scale. So if I'm just going to go to my scale tool, and if I drag the scale on the x-axis, you can see that what we're doing is to lengthen the steps. Okay, so this allows us to do some scaling, such as making it wider, maybe make it shorter, as well as pulling the staircase out. So this is the reason why I push the axis to the edge. This gives us the flexibility to scale the stairs according to what we want. Right. Now, we can take this even further by adding some beveling on our staircase so that we can get some nice rounded edges. So we're going to do 2 steps, right? First one I'm going to do is I want to make all these corners rounded, okay, so that it's not just a sharp edge. And to do so, I'm going to make use of the bevel tool. I'm going to make use of the bevel deformer, which is this one over here. Where is it? Right at the bottom. And place it on my staircase 1. You can see by default, it's just going to round all the corners. That looks pretty cool, but not exactly what I want. I just want to constrain the beveling to be only on the cornered edges. Okay, so I'm going to turn that off. And what I will do now is I'm just going to select all those edges. So select the staircase. Then go to my edge mode. And I'm just going to select all these corners. Right. So we have our staircase corners. And for me to use this in my bevel deformer, I need to first store them in the selection. So I'm just going to go to select and store selection. So this will store these selected edges inside this tag. Now, if I go to my bevel deformer, turn it back on, there is a setting for selection over here. So I just need to drop my selection into this field over here. And this will confine the bevel to only the selected edges. So very good. So now we can see this selected edges getting beveled. And I'm just going to add some rounding. And look at that. Nice rounded stairs. Okay, so you can adjust the stairs rounding to however much you want. Okay, just going to just tone it down a little bit so that we can get a tighter rounding. All right, and this is our staircase, rounded staircase, yeah. So now let's do another bevel so that we can add rounding onto the entire staircase so that will make it less sharp on the corners. So let's rename the bevel first. So this bevel number 1 is actually for the staircase rounding. Not sure what to actually title it, so I'm just going to call it staircase rounding. Now I'm going to create another bevel deformer, placing it inside the staircase number 1, but this time on the bottom, okay, so that we can bevel after we have done the rounding. It's already working, so we just need to increase our beveling amount, maybe add slight rounding. Okay, and if you see, we actually have some shading errors because of the beveling. So all we need to do is to go down to the topology settings at the bottom, and then we just switch on the font brick rounding, and this will remove those shading errors. And now we have a perfectly smooth and rounded staircase. This will be my bevel. I'm just going to call it bevel edges. And this is our completed staircase. And look at that, it looks so beautiful. Nice. All right, so let's repeat these steps for the second staircase so that we can also make it look good. I'm going to turn it back on. And oops, it looks like it's scaled pretty small now in comparison. But that can be easily fixed. I'll just go to my scale tool and expand it out a bit. Maybe make it a bit bigger. To create the same beveling, the first thing we need to do is to select the edges to round the corners. So again, go into edge mode. Take my selection tool, select all these corner edges. Then we're going to store the selection. I'm going to select, store the selection. And now I can duplicate my 2 bevels just by control clicking and dragging over. And I'm going to place it inside my staircase number 2 as well. Okay, so because the edge selection name is exactly the same as the staircase number 1 edge selection, so they actually detected the edge selection and linked it up also. So you can see it already works. So you don't have to do anything else. I can increase the rounding, make it a nice rounded staircase, increase the subdivision. Then we have yet another great looking staircase. Now see how easy is that? And entirely procedural. We can change at any point of time that you want. You can increase the beveling. Just be careful not to push it too far. And here we go. So this is our 2 staircase. Pretty easily done. Okay. Now, just to make it look nicer, I'm just going to do a nice quick render over here. Create a new plane. And I'm going to create a material. So I'm using Redshift over here. I'm going to create a new standard Redshift material. One for the plane, which is the floor. And another one, duplicate another one, and this one will be for my staircase. Okay, and just going to start my Redshift render. And of course, there is no light, so it doesn't look good. So I'm just going to add an infinite light. Okay, let's rotate it up. Okay, still doesn't look good. Going to just increase the intensity, maybe to 10. Now we're getting somewhere. And the shadow is very dark, so I'm just going to add a dome light also so that we can have some ambient lighting. Click on the dome light, and there we go. Now, there's a nice, beautiful staircase. All right, so let's make it even nicer. Okay, sorry, bringing back up that materials. The floor, just going to add maybe a blue color. Let's add this, and I'm going to make it non-reflective by turning down the reflection. Then I will go to my staircase, and maybe I'll just add it, make it a nice reddish pink color. Maybe something like this. And maybe reduce the reflection and make it a bit rougher. And this is our staircase. All right, so that's all for this tutorial. It's really easy to create a staircase just by doing 2 steps. You can create this really interesting looking staircase. So I hope you learned something, and I'll see you guys in the next one.